One of the largest living systems on Earth may be hiding far more than trees. But just how dangerous would it be to find yourself deep inside the Amazon with no road, no phone signal, and no clear way out? And what about the stories surrounding this enormous rainforest? Giant snakes, mysterious creatures, lost cities, and people living far beyond the reach of modern civilization. How much of those stories is actually true? Then there is an even bigger mystery. Some of the greatest secrets hidden beneath the forest may not be monsters at all. They may be evidence that millions of people once lived here. The Amazon is often called simply a rainforest, but the deeper you look, the more you realize that this is not just a forest. It is a world of rivers, animals, people, ancient civilizations, legends, and discoveries that are still changing what we thought we knew. Imagine standing beneath the Amazon canopy. Above you, enormous trees block much of the sunlight. Around you, insects are calling from every direction. Somewhere in the distance, a bird suddenly disappears into the vegetation. You can hear water moving, but you cannot see where it is coming from. Now, imagine that you keep walking. For hours, the landscape barely seems to change. There is no road, no familiar landmark, and in some remote areas, no easy way to contact the outside world. This is the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest covers roughly 5.5 million square kilometers, while the much larger Amazon basin covers about 7 million square kilometers. The basin occupies more than 40% of South America, and the Amazon River runs for almost 4,000 miles from the Andes toward the Atlantic Ocean.
If you enjoy this video, please subscribe our channel and follow our Facebook page.
To understand its scale, forget the idea of a normal forest. The Amazon is so large that it contains thousands of rivers, countless ecosystems, and an extraordinary variety of life. Jaguars move through the vegetation. Anacondas live around wetlands and waterways. Caimans wait beneath the surface. Electric eels can generate powerful electrical discharges. Pink river dolphins move through muddy water where visibility can be almost nothing. And these famous animals are only a fraction of what lives here. The Amazon contains millions of species, and many of them remain undescribed or poorly understood. WWF estimates that the region contains around 1 in 10 of all known species on Earth, including thousands of plants, freshwater fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals. But this incredible diversity also raises a darker question. If you entered the Amazon alone, how dangerous would it really be? The answer is complicated. Yes, the Amazon can be extremely dangerous, but perhaps not in the way movies have taught us to imagine. There are venomous snakes, there are parasites, there are disease-carrying insects, there are powerful rivers and seasonal floods, there is extreme heat and humidity. And there is one danger that sounds almost too simple to be frightening: getting lost. Inside dense rainforest, one direction can look almost identical to another. Thick vegetation can hide landmarks, rivers can change the landscape, and in remote areas, medical assistance may be extremely far away. Even a relatively ordinary injury can become serious when help is not nearby. And this is where the Amazon becomes different from the jungle shown in movies. A jaguar is real, a giant snake is real, a caiman is real. But the idea that these animals are constantly waiting for humans to enter the forest so they can attack is largely a product of storytelling. In reality, some of the most dangerous threats may be much smaller. A mosquito can transmit disease. A parasite can enter the body without being noticed.
And the environment itself can become a threat when a person is exhausted, dehydrated,
injured, or completely lost. But danger is only the beginning of the Amazon story. For centuries, the rainforest has been surrounded by stories of enormous snakes, mysterious creatures, strange forest beings, lost cities, hidden treasures, and places where outsiders supposedly could never go. Some of these stories are clearly legends. Some have been exaggerated, and others may have begun with real observations that became more dramatic as people continued telling the stories. So, where does reality end and mythology begin? Consider the giant anaconda. Large anacondas absolutely exist, and they are among the largest snakes on Earth. But that does not mean every photograph or internet story claiming to show a monster-sized snake is genuine. There's a major difference between a scientifically documented animal and a creature whose size has grown with every retelling. Then there's the legendary city of El Dorado. For centuries, European explorers searched South America for a place associated with enormous wealth. The legendary city of gold was never discovered as described in the stories. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because while El Dorado may have been a legend, the idea that sophisticated societies once lived deep inside the Amazon is not a legend anymore. Archaeologists have found evidence, and some of it was hidden beneath the forest for centuries. One of the technologies helping reveal this hidden world is LiDAR. Instead of simply photographing the tops of trees, LiDAR uses laser pulses to map the shape of the ground beneath dense vegetation. And when researchers began using this technology in parts of the Amazon, they started seeing something remarkable. Ancient roads, earthworks, canals, reservoirs, large settlements, monumental structures. In the Bolivian Amazon, researchers discovered evidence of the ancient Casarebe culture, which existed roughly between AD 500 and 1400. These people were not simply wandering through an untouched jungle. They built organized settlements and enormous earthworks, including elevated roads, canals, reservoirs, and monumental structures. Some structures rise more than 20 meters above the surrounding landscape. And then came an even more surprising discovery. In 2026, researchers published a major study using aerial LiDAR and other data across southwestern Amazonia. They identified more than 20,000 human-made earthworks in the surveyed region. Based on their analysis, the researchers estimated that between AD 100 and 300, the Acre region may have supported between 1.25 million and 3 million people. The study covered less than 3% of Greater Amazonia, and that detail is important. It does not mean the entire Amazon was once a giant city. It does not mean millions of people lived everywhere beneath the trees. But it does mean something much more important. Our old image of the Amazon as an almost untouched wilderness with only small, scattered human populations was far too simple. In some places, the forest was not hiding an absence of civilization, it was hiding evidence of civilization. And that changes the way we look at the entire rainforest. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next documentary. And if you're watching from our Facebook page, make sure you like and follow the page. Now, let's go deeper. Because the Amazon is not only home to the remains of ancient societies, it is also home to millions of people today. More than 40 million people live throughout the Amazon region, including hundreds of indigenous and ethnic groups. Many communities depend directly on the forest and its rivers for food, transportation, agriculture, traditional medicine, and their livelihoods. Some indigenous peoples continue to live in voluntary isolation from wider society, and these communities are often misunderstood. They're not mysterious creatures from jungle legends. They are human societies with their own languages, cultures, knowledge, and reasons for avoiding outside contact.
For some isolated communities, contact with outsiders can create serious risks, including exposure to diseases against which they may have little immunity. So, when we talk about the unknown Amazon, we should remember that the unknown does not necessarily mean something supernatural. Sometimes it simply means something we have not yet understood. And there is another Amazon story that almost everyone has heard. You may have heard that the Amazon produces 20% of the world's oxygen. It sounds impressive, but it is misleading. The rainforest does produce oxygen through photosynthesis, but the ecosystem also consumes oxygen through respiration and decomposition. So the Amazon is not a giant oxygen factory producing 1/5 of the oxygen that humans breathe. Its real importance is much more complicated. The Amazon stores enormous quantities of carbon. Its forests move huge amounts of water into the atmosphere. They influence rainfall, and the ecosystem supports an extraordinary concentration of biodiversity.
NASA describes the Amazon basin as a major part of regional and global heat, moisture, and carbon cycles. The rainforest also recycles a large portion of its rainfall back into the atmosphere. So perhaps the better way to understand the Amazon is not as the lungs of the planet. It is more like a massive living system that constantly moves water, carbon, energy, and life through the environment. And when that system begins to change, the consequences can extend far beyond the forest itself. Deforestation, fires, cattle ranching, agriculture, logging, mining, roads, and climate change are placing pressure on the region. When forests disappear, animals lose habitat. Carbon stored in vegetation can be released. Rivers and soils can be affected. Indigenous communities can face pressure on their lands, and the forest's ability to recycle water can also be disrupted. Yet perhaps the most fascinating part of all this is that every time scientists develop a better way to look into the Amazon, they seem to discover another layer of the story. Satellites reveal changes across enormous areas. LiDAR reveals ancient structures beneath the trees. DNA analysis helps scientists understand species and ecosystems. Field researchers continue to encounter organisms that are rare, poorly studied, or previously unknown to science. And archaeology is revealing that parts of this forest have a human history far more complex than people once believed. So is the Amazon full of monsters? Probably not. Is every story about giant snakes, lost cities, and mysterious creatures true? Definitely not. But is the real Amazon less fascinating than the legends? Perhaps the opposite is true. Because reality already gives us something extraordinary. A rainforest larger than many countries. A river system stretching thousands of miles. Millions of species. Ancient settlements hidden beneath the vegetation. Indigenous societies with generations of knowledge. Dangerous animals and even more dangerous environmental conditions, and an ecosystem that plays a major role in the movement of carbon and water around our planet. And still, after all the satellites, aircraft, LiDAR scans, scientific expeditions, and archaeological discoveries, one fact remains: we have not seen everything. Some parts of the Amazon remain extremely difficult to study. Some species are still poorly understood. Some archaeological sites may still be hidden beneath vegetation, and some stories passed down through generations may contain pieces of reality that we have not yet been able to explain. So perhaps the greatest mystery of the Amazon is not whether a monster is hiding somewhere beneath the trees. The greater mystery is how much of this enormous living world is still unknown to us. Because the forest has already shown us that beneath what looks like untouched wilderness, there can be entire histories waiting to be discovered. And somewhere beneath that endless green canopy, there may still be another river we have not fully explored, another species we have never properly documented, or an ancient structure waiting for someone to finally see it. So the question is no longer simply what is hiding inside the Amazon. The real question is, how much of the Amazon have we actually discovered, and how much of its story is still waiting beneath the trees?